Supply Chain Talk, the live webinar with no presentations, no PowerPoint, just talk.
Hello, everyone. Hello to our Supply Chain Talk October edition. We have an amazing panel. We have an amazing topic to discuss, something which is really close to my heart. How to take supplier collaboration to the next level. It's something very current, especially in our vulnerable and agile reality. Before we go into the panel discussion and I invite my guests on the stage, I would like to thank you, the audience, being and making time for us today. And please, I encourage you to comment, post questions, observation, make compliments, because the best comment, the best question will be awarded with a Supply Chain Talk, which is beautiful, and this will be sent out by the business reporter colleagues. So the main topic, taking supplier collaboration to the next level, will be debated with thought leaders, and we have quite an international panel. And I will invite everyone on the stage. And first of all, I would like to invite you, Robert Jones, Senior Procurement Manager at Community Fibre, probably London's best all-net provider. I'm a subscriber with Community Fibre. As you can see, the Wi-Fi is going very strong. Robert is a keen musician, playing the piano, guitar, and has a corgi dog named Windsor. Really cool. Welcome to our Supply Chain Talk, Robert.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Thank you.
My second guest, Sheldon Mydad, is an acclaimed customer supplier relationship evangelist. He's the founder and the CEO of Suppeco, an award-winning collaborative relationship platform for supply chain, and which was named in 2023 by IDC the innovator platform. So Sheldon is road cycling, has a passion for road cycling. Welcome to our Supply Chain Talk, Sheldon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for having you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes, I can. Our third panelist is Michael Amico, who has 6 years experience in digital manufacturing, who have been helping hundreds hardware teams accelerate from new product innovation to production while navigating challenges and COVID. He was once censored as an audience member of the game show The Price is Right. Welcome to our Supply Chain Talk, Michael.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for having me, Anna.
Yes, thank you for attending. Last but not least, I would like to welcome Ellen, who is an industry thought leader at Kinaxis, a veteran planning and operations leader. More recently, he has served as Vice President of Global Technical Cooperations and Biologics for Leo Pharma and Vice President of Network Supply Planning at Pfizer. Ellen has lived in 5 countries and speaks 3 languages. Welcome to our Supply Chain Talk, Ellen.
Thank you, Anna Maria. Great to be here.
Great to have you all. Very international. I have my guests logged in from Canada, from San Francisco, and from London. So very, very international, and which is great because we need that international lens when we look at how to take supplier collaboration to the next level. And to help us with creating the debate, I would like to welcome the audience to click on our news items, which is an article published by an American magazine, business magazine, Forbes. And briefly, what is this this news item talking about, and the article is talking about lack of visibility. Becky, who can be any of us, Becky is lacking visibility in supply chain. The demand planning accuracy is being impacted because of too much manual labor. And in summary, the news items is referring to how critical in the current reality, how critical the enablement, the technology is in order to create that true collaboration. I would like just briefly to comment, to welcome your thoughts. Robert, what do you think about the news item? Would you agree?
I do agree, and I think that that's one thing that particularly at a developing procurement team or even a developing company for that matter, we need to employ technology as early as we can do to mitigate the variable risks that are out there. You called it out earlier, saying that we're in a time of great instability, and having that technology, that ability to understand potential supply disruptions and work collaboratively with our supply base is really, really critical and important. But at the same time, technology has to be understood, it has to be valued, and people actually have to use it properly. You'll never get away from the old-fashioned way of dealing with suppliers through robust communication channels that help convey the risks and concerns, and we can kind of coordinate plans together. But yeah, I think technology is always going to play such a critical part, and that will kind of evolve over time, and it's certainly getting that way. Look at AI, for example. What impact that will have.
And we will discuss today more. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Sheldon, what do you think about Becky lacking visibility and how critical technology is?
So it's, firstly, let me say that my camera seems to have stopped working, but I'm just imagine, I was going to make a joke about the plant. Just imagine I'm there. Look, it's very, very important. In fact, I know Sarah Scudder well. She's a powerful influencer, and this article is a key article, to be honest with you. And with some of the new challenges that we face around driving sustainable supply chain, for example, you can't just impose sustainable supply chain, sustainable practice. That obviously the legislation is increasing. It's going to find its way into the supply chain because 80% of the company's revenue lives in the supply chain, or is generated inside the supply chain. But you can't impose sustainable practice. You have to do it through driving the right behaviors collaboratively by bringing your entire ecosystem along the journey. So there have been studies from the likes of EcoVadis that have shown surveys. They've carried out surveys looking at 100% of the suppliers that they surveyed said that CSR clauses that were pushed out into contract weren't worth the paper they were written on, because they were just pushed en masse into the supply chain. So it's been shown not to work. There is a profound link between driving relationship management and driving sustainable supply chain, and obviously driving better collaboration is a key component of driving better relationships. So yes, it's absolutely on point.
Thank you. A lot of goodness there mentioned by you, Robert and Sheldon, about EcoVadis, which I'm very familiar with. I used it in my corporate times. Behaviors, leadership behaviors, technology needs to be understood. So ultimately, technology cannot do the job without proper leadership and proper, teamwork. Michael, I'm interested to hear your thoughts about the article.
Yeah, happy to. I think I provide maybe a ground floor perspective on this, and I have a lot of empathy for Becky the buyer, as described in this article. Oftentimes in organizations, Becky the buyer is performing multiple different tasks and duties for 15 to 20 mechanical engineers or different people within the organization, and she's using tools that are siloed to her only. So she's constantly getting pinged with, hey, where's this? Hey, where's that? And she's getting knocked off track to the more strategic and important tasks and goals that she's well qualified to perform. So, it strikes a chord, and certainly there are a lot of tools out there that are helping empower Becky and turn her into an unstoppable force. And the Beckys of the world are the people that I try and meet and help.
Yeah, this is amazing. And I think each and every one of us at some point in time, either we've been Becky or we have someone who is Becky. Ellen, what do you think in your, prestigious and your leadership career? What are your thoughts in regards to technology, leadership, transparency in order to foster better collaboration with suppliers?
Well, the last decade or two have been focused on creating digital twins within an enterprise and giving that visibility internally and that fast decision making. And I think the next paradigm for supply chain is to extend that ecosystem to suppliers and especially contract manufacturers. I've suffered with contract manufacturers many times, but to have that same visibility and actually even maybe a win-win planning kind of environment where both companies are planning together and they can see outside operations just as well as they can see internal operations. And the platforms are becoming available to do that. So it's exciting times.
It's exciting times. Thank you so much, Ellen. And yes, digital twin, and I will cover in the closing, in my closing statement. I will invite everyone to the next supply chain talk session, which will touch about digital twin. So now I think let's go into the 3 points that we have to debate for us to debate. The first one being what's the difference between light collaboration with our key suppliers and deep collaboration? Is there a difference from your experience? And I would like to invite Robert. What do you think from your experience? Have you come across with and have you experienced like collaboration with suppliers versus deep collaboration?
Yeah, absolutely so. I mean, it's something that we certainly do at Community Fibre and organisations I've worked in prior, such as Johnson & Johnson, and also I worked for Leo Pharma as well for a number of years. But in terms of, I guess, the definition of how we define what we mean by kind of light engagement and kind of light collaboration, is that when you look at kind of the deeper side with suppliers, you're looking for that sense of where the relationship stands. So you're looking, for example, with that communication piece, which I talked about earlier. You tend to kind of build that transparency. You talk about kind of collaborative goals. You talk about market insights. You talk about sharing kind of a fostering almost like a mutual trust, so to say, because you have a key kind of objective in mind, where you want the businesses to kind of go to. It's very much a partnership approach, as opposed to when you look at kind of lighter collaboration, it can be more for kind of transactional sort of means. So within a deeper kind of alignment, you have a more signified approach to how what success actually looks like, and that's through kind of collaboration. It's through kind of inclusive planning. It's through that kind of it's taking that performance as well, and to understand, okay, so what does the output actually mean? How do we actually get there? And as opposed to like a lighter collaboration, or kind of where you look at it not so much, I guess, you look at it more holistically, as it were, in terms of, so we've got to get to A to Z, but actually we can forego some of those key elements I talked about earlier.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's a lot of goodness in what you say, and definitely strategic partnership. I think once you segment the supplier base in critical and strategic, you can put in place the right frameworks with the right meeting regime, with the right KPIs in order to manage proactively the suppliers instead of suppliers managing us, the companies. Amazing. Yeah. Sheldon, what's your experience, light versus deep collaboration with the suppliers?
So look, I spent 25 years as a practitioner in the procurement space, and I've worked with many organizations that were implementing collaboration agreements. So this is where they had potentially a prime partner that worked with a series of other also prime suppliers or prime partners, but we all needed to work together collaboratively on a kind of fixed first, argue later understanding, and there was a lot of time spent creating these agreements that drove this collaborative behavior and the right kind of business behaviors and principles of collaboration, if you like. Things have moved on a lot since then. I did this for years, and we built software out of it. To be honest with you, it's a kind of
Yes.
me in a can and all of my experiences. And
Yeah.
there's a real gift with digital technology in that it allows us with live collaboration, and we're able to take events-based activity, okay, stuff that we do with our suppliers in the operational space. And let's remember that we don't live in a contract, we live in the real world, in the operational ether, where things don't happen to laws or to order. So it's very, very important that we create the structure in the operational space to actually collaborate meaningfully, because collaboration is a word that's been bandied around a lot, just like the word relationship. But there are some real meaning, some impact behind these words, because if you do them badly, you can cost yourself, you can create real liability. So anyway, the fact is, with digital transfer, with digital technologies such as ours and others as well, you're able to vacate this events-based approach in favor of a continuous approach. So McKinsey did a study, and they said that digital platforms are able to drive an additional 3 to 10% annually and incrementally on an annual basis, simply by being able to reduce two key KPIs. One is time to action, and one is time on task, reducing them radically, because they're able to create actionable data, live dynamic data, without the need to vacate out to a legacy governance function. Digital transformation means that everything that we're used to becomes continuous.
Thank you, Sheldon.
Presents
Yes. Yes, I don't want to cut you off. Yes, it's just I want to make sure that we have enough time to debate, because we have such a rich agenda. And yes, I agree with everything you say. And I think what we are living in now with the supply chain agility, what the consumer trends is more and more going into the e-commerce, we need immediately, on time, in full, very agile supply chain, and only the digitalization of supply chain will be able to, to keep that deep collaboration with our suppliers. And you are so right, and thank you for bringing insights. Michael, what's your experience in terms of deep versus light collaboration?
Yeah, I think most of my experience comes more in the lighter collaboration, early stage relationships. And it's really an interesting observation. I get to sit in the middle between supplier and buyer and see the conversations. And a lot of times it starts with a very guarded lack of sharing of information. And Sheldon said reducing the time to action. Yeah. So an observation that we make here at Giga, based on our vantage point, is the more transparent you are early in the stage, the faster you can get to action, because your suppliers are working on a better data set and can better serve meet your needs. So I really appreciated Sheldon's comment about time to action. That got my head nodding up and down. And,
yes. Yes, yeah. And that transparency, Michael, comes with trust. So the strategic supplier relationships are in place. We need trust. We need to create that trust, and we will cover that. Thank you so much. Ellen, what's your view about and your experience in terms of creating that deep collaboration with critical suppliers?
Yeah, so I've had very critical suppliers, and I agree with Michael. Trust has to be established from the beginning. Most of my experience has been with contract manufacturing and very critical manufacturing steps using very expensive material that we were supplying. And so trust has to be out there. There has to be a willingness to exchange information both ways. And when you have that trust and that partnership, then you can pursue a higher level of collaboration. Now, you don't want to do that with everyone, obviously. You don't have the bandwidth. but I've seen everything from, just information sharing via email to actually allowing suppliers into your planning system to update data, to even working in a platform where you exchange transactional data. And that's kind of the deep area that where I want to be with strategic partners.
Yes, and now we are moving very naturally into the trust piece of which is at the heart of concluding and having in place strategic partnerships. I think if we think about what's the most well-recognized example in the world of strategic partnership, two very famous brands. I'm not a big fan of those brands. I'm into a more healthy lifestyle, but who doesn't know about McDonald's and Coca-Cola partnership? It's everything started in a parking area with a handshake. This is how the partnership between McDonald's and Coca-Cola started. 68 years of partnership. And when you go to Coca-Cola or to McDonald's, you have a Coca-Cola. So it's a long-standing partnership, which and also there is a dedicated Coca-Cola department inside of McDonald's. So this is the level of transparency. It's just for us to have it as an example of trust. So how to build trust with your strategic partners? Do you have any examples, Robert, in your in your experience? For example, at Community Fiber, when you put in place those strategic relationship management contracts, do you have any sensitive suppliers who don't want to share, where you see trust is not being is being challenged?
I would say it's something that we in an ideal world we don't have that issue, but reality kind of would dictate quite differently. Yes, is the answer. We do have some suppliers, and I'm not going to name names, but I think that there are suppliers that are quite integral to the business where we do find sometimes that perhaps I wouldn't say it's an issue with trust. I just think when you talked about where you see the supplier goes from a strategic aspects, how important are they to continuous operations of Community Fiber and building our network, then there are definitely aspects that I think need to kind of be improved and kind of sharpened on. I guess you could say that they fall within the realm kind of what trust. So I'm talking about basics here, such as like performance metrics and stuff. So do we understand how are we measuring those metrics? Do we understand recognition of those metrics? Are they doing well? Are they adhering to the contract? And I'd argue as well that sometimes, on a collaborative aspect as well, that they don't, even though they're a key supplier, that we may not be approached within the same kind of, I guess, regular sort of, I guess, interaction that a trusted and strategic supplier would kind of place upon us. So I think, I would like to think that, we don't have issues of trust when we work with our supply base. Our suppliers do an incredible job for us. They've helped us build this fantastic, amazing network, and we do try to kind of champion those as best we can do. But are there improvements that can happen? Yes, of course. I always think kind of one of the biggest aspects for us is kind of our post-implementation as well. So we look at when the contract's actually rolling. We don't do a good enough job in terms of feedback or in terms of looking to understand how can we do better, where can the contract improve. How are we going to improve synergies, even efficiencies, looking at sustainability, which is always going to be a key metric of any kind of business now, particularly in today's world. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Yes, it's really interesting. And of course, we don't go into naming suppliers, but it's good to hear the challenges because they are everywhere in terms of, sharing data, reluctancy, probably not trusting enough, or even, we are living in a competitive world. So suppliers being, very mindful of their competition. Sheldon, do you have anything to share with us in terms of your own experience? Do you think trust is at the core of strategic partnerships?
Yes. So I can refer to one of our customers. So BAE Systems, their mission was to become their supplier's customer of choice for a number of reasons. Obviously, a lot of the areas that they work in, or many of the areas they work in, are are areas where raw materials are in short supply, and it's, you know, in a situation like that, semiconductors, for example, you want to be fostering good relationships with your suppliers when the components that you use are in short supply. You want to be at the front of the queue, because, you know, the attitudes of supply chain is changing. You know, everybody thinks, well, you have a customer and then you have your supply chain upstream, but the fact is that every one of those suppliers in the supply chain is also a customer. So, you know, the mentality isn't just that, it's not this linear thing. So and suppliers are very good at collaborating because they collaborate with more than one, with many customers. And the old attitudes are changing in terms of driving percentage point reductions in, you know, rather than what we see more so now, where customers and suppliers want to collaborate together to overcome challenges. It's a much more long-term, you know, strategic approach. And you mentioned trust. Trust, as far as I am concerned, is the global. It's a global currency. Trust is a global currency that's used within, you know, used the world over, and it's easily abused, not hard and hard earned, I'd say. And so there are definite strategies in place that BAE Systems, for example, by creating an equitable place for their suppliers to come together. They wanted to give their suppliers a voice. They wanted to give their suppliers the ability to contribute, not just have a shop window into what's thought of them, but to have a voice, have equitable access, and to be able to critique. They were very, very into driving the narrative, just rather than just KPI dashboards. They wanted to create a narrative that helped them on.
Thank you so much, Sheldon. And I love this. And this is something that I would like the audience to take away. Trust, and to quote you, trust is the global currency. And it comes only with time and with a win-win, approach. Companies, suppliers, it has to be a win-win. What's your view, Michael? Do you believe in trust being a global currency in order to foster great suppliers collaboration?
Absolutely. I think again, I'll provide more of a ground floor feedback, and it's simple basics, but from my vantage point, it's amazing how many people fail at the very first opportunity. I think one of the best tools to establish trust is actually under our own personal control. It's responsiveness and effective communication. And so we're focused on building tools that improve or get people out of their spreadsheets and emails so that they can improve their responsiveness, right? And so many partners just drop the ball on being the ones that win respond within 24 hours. Like, we have key metrics in terms of who is winning and establishing trust relationships on our platform. And it all really boils down to that first interaction and responsiveness.
Amazing, with responsiveness and communication, because nothing can happen without, and even trust, without having a very honest communication channel with the key suppliers. And I remember once when we were this was from my experience in the corporate time, I won't name the supplier, but we were squeezing the supplier a strategic partnership to deliver. And I remember when I was challenged back, I was a Becky in procurement, and I was challenged back, Anna, but how it's 5 years contract. We kept delivering year on year savings. We kept delivering so much value add, so much efficiencies. How much can we deliver? Because we need to make profit in order to stay sustainable. As you as the corporation has. And it was a moment when I realized you cannot, it's communication is so important. Ellen, in your decades of, thought leadership, either from your experience, from your own, on-site experience, or from consulting experience, do you believe that trust is at the heart of building this amazing, sustainable, strategic relationship with suppliers?
Yeah, I'll tell a short story from my experience. We were in a situation where we had a syringe filling site that was not performing well, an internal site, and we were capacity constrained, and the market needed 20% more than what we could produce. So we had to go back to a contract manufacturer that we had burned multiple bridges with several years before I joined the company. And they wouldn't even respond to our emails in the beginning. So there was no trust. They did not trust us at all. And we did not deserve it. But finally, we made a connection, and I stepped in. I had external manufacturing. I stepped in, procurement took the lead, but then I stepped in, and I developed a relationship with their executive director of industrial manufacturing. And we started having meetings. I would do the minutes myself and issue those immediately after the meeting. We would come to agreements. Whenever there was a surprise, I would give my colleague a call in the other company so that he knew as soon as I knew, if there was a change. And that relationship over a period of about 6 to 9 months really became one of trust. We were doing tech transfers, we were validating new equipment. We even had a regulatory group collaborating really well, and they loved their regulatory group. So it really went from distrust to deep trust in a very short period of time, about a year. And but I had to personally get involved in that, and I had to develop this relationship with their lead. And I guess the last thing I would say is, has anyone ever thought about including a strategic partner in your internal S&OP meetings? Yes. For me, that would kind of be the ultimate in what I would call a strategic partnership.
Yeah, probably McDonald's does it with Coca-Cola. The strategic operational plan is done in conjunction, because otherwise I can't see how they've built such a a strategic partnership, and this is so important. And when you said it took 9 to 12 months, you say it so simply, Ellen, but it took you. It takes the right leadership in order to step in, recognize it's a human to human. Yeah, despite all this digital stuff and fancy reporting and KPIs, we need a human to human interaction, and we need leadership. The right inclusive leadership in order to foster these relationships. Thank you. We have a question from the audience from James. What are some best practices and tools that the panelists have found effective in ensuring a smooth transition to more collaborative and concurrent planning processes with suppliers, and how do they measure the success of those implementations? So can anyone from my panel can reply to James? What are some? Yes, Ellen.
Well, yeah, I was actually at the ASCM conference several weeks ago, and I saw a presentation by a company called Nulogy. They're a collaboration platform, and Colgate-Palmolive. And they actually demonstrated how they were sharing this transactional data, and they were in an environment where they were using, it happened to be our planning solution to do concurrent planning across, multiple enterprises. So they had it was contract manufacturing, it was a packaging operation, but they had actually, using that platform, had gotten to a level where they had a digital twin of both companies together. They had secure sharing of information, and they were actually able to do concurrent planning. So whenever something happened anywhere, both parties would see the impact of that and be able to start decision making around how to mitigate.
On time and in full. Thank you, Robert. Any thoughts? Any best practices you have experienced?
Yeah, I think, and I keep harping on about it, but it's relentless communication. I think, you know, in terms of the setup. So a lot of I myself predominantly work from home, and I will go out to supplier visits when I can, doing trips into the London office. But I think, you know, in terms of the physical platforms, I think was the question. Sorry, I can't find the question now. But it was basically in terms of, you know, how do we find that those have been successful in terms of like, transition to a more collaborative way. I think, look, it's, you know, again, it's having that kind of fixed structure in terms of how, you know, for example, when you go into that communication and that meeting, that discussion, you have a real clear agenda on what exactly is you're trying to achieve from that meeting. Yes. And you have those metrics that you know you're going to be measuring against, and you know what the output is going to be. And you know, for example, if there are dependencies on the previous meeting, that those dependencies are followed up, and there is a plannable action that's being addressed. And you talked about the trust element earlier. Mm-hmm. I think that plays a massive part in how successful that will actually be. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, that's how I measure the success of it. But again, it's you know, I use technology. You know, I use Teams for the majority of my kind of, I guess, my discussions with these suppliers. You can't be in person, face-to-face interaction. I think, and some relationships will require more face-to-face than others. But yeah, that's how I would do it anyway.
Yes, and this is one of the best practice I have also seen in other, you know, in the FMCG sector where I used to work for 2 decades. They have the same, you know, these supplier relationship management frameworks in place. Yes. Per category, per, you know, types of spend. Sheldon, any thoughts from your experience quickly? Any best practices?
Well, it's going to be a shameless pitch of our own software, I'm afraid, because SupplyChain is an award-winning collaboration platform. That's exactly what it does. We don't focus on the structured logical data. Which is between 1% and 5% of a company's data. We focus on creating, harnessing the value in what is 90% of companies' data, i.e. the unstructured data layer, which coincidentally is obviously the target data set for large language models that we're all talking about now. They focus overwhelmingly on extracting data from large language models. And that's exactly what we do to drive live, actionable collaboration. And what we actually do, talk about best practice, if you're going to use a digital platform, it opens up so many new doors for you to drive so much more value. One of them is obviously the live and dynamic data that comes in across the entire ecosystem, all this live discussion operationally, documentation, email, whatever it happens to be. But what it then also enables you to do is drive actionable data. One of the things that we've heard recently in discussions with BP and MTN, they both said the same thing. It was very interesting. There's so much data now, so much data. There's dashboards and scorecards everywhere. And the thing is, nobody has any time at the moment because even the biggest companies are very resource challenged. And rather than having screens full of data, what they really want is the data that they need pushed out to their screens. That's what we're working on now. That's what we want to see. That's going to make our boat go faster. We don't want to have to look for it. Send it to us. Live, actionable data. So that's exactly what we do. And that for me is best practice. That's addressing the current need. Rather than shoving data down people's throats, we give them exactly what they need when they need it.
It's great to hear there are tools being developed in order to support a more, you know, in-time, on-time, real-time data reporting, which is key in order to manage the suppliers' accurate data, accurate reporting, and real-time. Any thoughts, Michael, in terms of what are the platforms, best practices in order to ensure a smooth transition to more?
Sure, I'm in a very similar boat to Sheldon, where I'm afraid to make the shameless plug, but we are building a collaboration platform for Becky, the Beckys of the world that as described in the Forbes magazine. We're heavily focused on internal cross-functional collaboration along with collaboration with external suppliers and building a place for you to do that. There's a lot of exciting startups that are like Sheldon's, I imagine, that are building similar tools, maybe for a higher level engagement, higher along in the supply chain than us. I can say it's a really exciting place to be, and if you're a supply chain manager looking for the tools, they're out there being built now.
This is incredible, yeah. Seeing the digitalization of supply chain, of procurement, taking over and making Becky's life easier. And ultimately, the companies aim to be profitable, get the product or the service available on the shelf. So this is so critical. Digitalization, not necessarily looking at the digitalization replacing people, looking at the digitalization, making the manual task, the non-value tasks, making them more accurate and rapid in order to enable profitability, cash flow, availability of the products on the shelf, because this is what we are consumers, so we want to have those products available to us. What I would really like us also, because we are approaching, when we have fun, we are approaching the end of, we are now moving into towards the end of the session. I would really like if you are to name one key takeaway, one action that you would like the audience to take away in a very succinct 1 minute only, what would you like the audience to take away in order to implement a better, more strategic supplier collaboration? Robert, can I start with you, please? 1 minute thought.
Go. Yeah, that's time critical. No, I think it has to be on the basis of what I like to call imperative collaboration. So what I mean by that is that you prioritize the supplier's impact to the business. You understand the methods in which the supplier works. You understand how to get the best from that supplier and what their dependencies, what their asks are. How do they measure success as us as a customer? I think that the comment was rightly raised earlier. They're a customer too to someone. So I think that there needs to be an increasing amount of communication, a higher amount of visibility in terms of what makes that partnership successful. So I think if you can take that away, understand those pain points, drive those pain points out, and then look toward collaboration.
Amazing.
That's how I would. Yeah.
Thank you. Very well articulated. Thank you. Sheldon, what's your 1 minute key action for the audience to take away?
I won't be long, I promise. For me, look, if what I do with Supplico, what we do, it's our life's work. It's a passion to create real, true collaborative relationships, not just for bilateral engagement, but upstream into the supply chain, creating, bringing along on the journey the much smaller companies that exist in supply chain. Remember that 90% of companies out there are SMEs. 43% of those smaller companies in supply chain have zero visibility of their produce once it leaves their premises. And they are being asked to meet the same legislation that's being pushed out into supply chain. The only difference is they're struggling to pay the bills and they're saying, what's in it for me? We are creating an equitable place that brings those suppliers, tier 1s, 2s, and 3s along the journey too. It's the only way to drive the right kind of, the efficient, sustainable supply chain, create an equitable place that everybody can join. And that's what we've created.
Yes, thank you so much. And totally true. I'm passionate about equitable place. Michael, what's your thought? 1 minute, please.
Sure. Yeah. If you're in the C-suite, I guarantee you there's a couple or many Beckys that work within your organization that are completely overwhelmed, and focusing on reducing their time to action. I'm going to steal that from you, Sheldon. Will, I think, yield a lot of great returns.
We should talk, Michael. We should talk.
Yes,
sure.
Great collaboration already happening here. Ellen, your punchy thoughts.
Yeah, my punchline is you have to ask yourself the question, do you want a supplier working for you, or do you want them working with you? And for the suppliers that you want working with you, and contract manufacturers, that's where you need to focus and build the trust and the collaboration, and someday S&OP.
Amazing. Yes. Thank you so much. We are running, very late, and the mug and the winner is James. Thank you all for asking the questions. Just before closing, thank you so much to my panelists, to my thought leader. Thank you to the audience. The next episode is next Wednesday, the same time. It's about better inventory management with digital twin. Thank you so much for being today with us. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Maria.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.